In our readings, today, we essentially have two sets of people. Those that are concerned with earthly things and those that are presented as concerned with more spiritual things. The rulers and the torturers of the first reading and the Sadducees of our gospel are concerned with earthly things and with power. While the brothers in the first reading and the presentation that Jesus gives in the gospel is about people that are concerned not with these earthly things and how things work out here, but more with this spiritual sense. And this is a common dichotomy set up in our faith of kind of these bad guys and these good guys, the earthly things and the spiritual things. And if that's all we see in today's gospel, then the message is pretty easy. Don't be like the Sadducees, don't be like the rulers, be like the brothers instead in the first reading. Be strong in your faith, endure all things, and then you can even endure the most imaginable things, even your own death. The danger of taking this message in that singular, simplified kind of version is, in some ways, then we can just start to live out our faith as we live out the rest of our lives and just line it up with a lot of the messages that we're given in our life in general. Be strong, hold fast to your convictions, and you'll get your reward. It's kind of a pull yourself up by the bootstraps type of theology. But if we take a minute to put ourselves into the Sadducees' feet instead, and try to think about maybe what it means to ask the question that they asked. Because essentially what they were asking was, what happens after we die? And we've all entertained that question to one degree or another. If Jesus was to walk through these doors today, I'd have a few questions for him. I would want to ask him why knees are made so poorly, and hips too. And then my other question would be, what happens? What happens after this life? What has happened to the people that have left us? Where does that life go? And what about all this physicalness of ourselves? We only understand ourselves in this world through our bodies and others' bodies. And what does it mean when those bodies are gone? When that gravestone is erected or the ashes are scattered? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for those that we are missing? And what does it mean for the tenuousness of each of our lives? These are important questions to ask. And our struggle with them, the distress and the sadness and the grief that they cause us at times, does not mean that we have a lack of faith or that we're more like the Sadducees or more concerned with earthly things. They are simply questions about what it means to be human. They are good and sometimes painful questions to entertain. But I think ultimately those questions are less about us and our nature and our capabilities and more about who God is. And those questions can invite us and allow us to step one step further into the mystery of God's deep love and presence for us. The gospel this evening concludes with this line: "They can no longer die, for they are like angels. They are the children of God, because they are the ones who will rise. That the dead will rise, even Moses made that known in the passage about the bush, when he called out, 'Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for to him all are alive.'" Our God is not the God of the dead, but of the living, and to God all are alive. This is a statement too big for us to often hold, but this is the truth of our gospel and the truth that our faith reveals. And it is about who God is, and this deep truth that each and every one of us has been pronounced alive by God. God is the main character of this story. And it's not necessarily about our faithfulness or our ability to always believe in it, because that is always difficult and we will always have challenges in that. But if we focus it on God, then it is in God that we live, and in God that we will always live. And we live because of who God is, and that is love. It is this deep and all-encompassing love of God. And that's where we get rooted, where we find our sustenance, and where we find that we truly live and have everlasting life. I read this reflection this week that equated our connection with God like the tree's connection with Mother Earth. And it described how the nutrient-rich earth is what brings forth the life of the new tree. It's the loving being of the Mother Earth that through that all life is birthed. Life exists because of the earth. And so it is the same with us. We grow out of the love of God. Our life is rooted in God's love. Life comes from that love. It grows and is sustained by that love, and someday will ultimately return back to that love again. Another quote gets to that same point, saying, "Love is a force much deeper than life. When life ceases, love stays. It becomes the home, the embracing arms that enfold us. Love is the substance, life is the outgrowth." And this is the promise of our gospel, the promise of our God. In God, all are alive, because all of life is deeply rooted in God's love. And life never stops. It just dwells more deeply into that mystery of God's love. And I think this is a message that we all need, but especially as we enter into this darker season of the winter, when there's more twilight than sunlight, and when our church calendar starts to delve into the mysteries of Christ coming among us, and when our world continues to swirl with chaos and moments of fear and violence. This message invites us to take refuge in the promise of God, that our life in the here and now and in the beyond will always be sustained by God's love. This week, a colleague of mine read this beautiful reflection by the author Joy Roulaire Sawyer. It's entitled, "When You Leave Us." And I think it speaks so beautifully to the love that connects us to God, to one another, and to those that have gone beyond us or have gone past us. "When you move wordlessly from one life into another, you will bring all of us who have ever declared our love with our hearts or with our mouths. We will walk with you arm in arm. And instead of leaving us at the gate, you find we have all entered with you. We all see a new maple, a bush on fire, a tiny sparrow perched on a flat rock. You cannot leave us, and we cannot leave you. Though you have made your entrance into a new home, our old homes are full of the things that you loved. You live on mantles and journals, on a recipe card splattered with sugar cookie dough. When night comes, we are certain you hear our voices, low and full on brick patios, ice cubes swirling in our paper cups. Nothing is nearer than love itself, even when life has carefully tucked you in, closed your bedroom window, and whispered its soft goodnight. We are only steps away from you, through the clear glass on the other side of the pane. If we listen carefully, underneath the crickets and the murmur of twilight, we still hear you breathing, as steady as the slow dance that begins among us, underneath the patient stars. For those of us on this side of the window pane, we can take assurance as we face our own mortality and those that we miss, our beloved that have gone before us, because the aliveness of God and their life too is all around us. That life, that love is calling out to us, even in the dark and cold moments of our lives. In the twinkling of the stars, in the clouds' movement above us, in the rustling of leaves and the snow at our ankles, God's life stirs, and so does ours, and so does our beloveds who have gone before us, reminding us over and over again that we are not alone and we are traveling together. And so as we step into this next week and begin to enter into the next couple of dark months before us, I hope that we can find moments to simply be present to the gift of life within us and within one another, and know with all surety, no matter what questions we have, no matter how difficult it gets, that God says to us, I love you and you are alive in me.